My friend Marcus touched my arm during the processional. Not a tap, a grip, the specific grip of someone who needs you to stop what you're doing and look at something. Wade, he said quietly. Look. Sarah was 20 feet away, walking toward me down the aisle between the string lights and the wildflowers, in her simple white dress and my grandmother's pearl earrings. I was supposed to be looking at her. I had been waiting to look at her. I looked at the barn window instead. The parking lot, a silver sedan, 3 doors opening, 3 figures stepping out, head to toe in black. All 3 of them. My mother in her funeral dress, the one she keeps in a dry cleaning bag for occasions that require it. My father in his dark suit. My sister Belle in a lace dress so deliberately, specifically black, that I knew it had not been an accident or a miscalculation. This had been chosen. They walked in as Sarah reached me at the altar. 150 people turned their heads. Nobody spoke. Cole's Aunt Margene in the second row leaned toward her husband and whispered, at a volume that the barn's particular acoustics carried further than she intended, "Is someone dead?" My father took the front row seat like he owned it. My mother sat beside him with the composed expression of a woman who had decided something and was waiting for it to unfold. Belle smoothed her black lace and looked at me across the room with a smile that was technically a smile. Sarah took both my hands. She looked at me, not at them, at me, and her eyes were steady and warm and present in the way they always are when she wants me to understand that she knows what's happening and I don't have to manage it alone. We got married. Right then, in front of 150 people and 3 family members in funeral clothes, we got married. And what I didn't know, what I wouldn't understand until the reception, was that my wife had a USB drive in her jacket pocket, and that she had been building toward this moment for 18 months, and that the 3 people in the front row had no idea what was coming. I grew up invisible. This is not self-pity. It's the accurate description of a dynamic I spent 23 years inside before I understood its name. My sister Belle was the golden child in the specific, documented way of firstborn daughters in families where parents need a story to organize their love around. Dance recitals, homecoming court, her photo in the local paper twice before she finished high school. If Belle sneezed, my parents framed the tissue. I was the one who cooked dinner on the evenings my mother worked late, the one who kept straight A's in courses nobody asked about, the one who worked double shifts through college because I had understood, earlier than most people understand such things, that the distribution of resources in my family was not going to favor me, and I needed to build my own floor. I kept my mouth shut. That's what the invisible ones do. You learn early that the energy required to be seen is greater than the energy available, and you redirect it toward things that are actually within your control. I redirected it toward saving money. 10 years. Dollar store shampoo and packed lunches and a 2011 Subaru with 140,000 miles that I kept running through the specific frugality of a man who has a number in mind and is not going to let anything interrupt the accumulation. By the time I was 28, I had $85,000 in a high-yield savings account. I had never told my parents the number. Then they called about the house. My parents' house was built in 1971 and had not been substantially updated since approximately 1987. The roof was beyond its useful life. The foundation had developed cracks that my mother had been placing furniture over for 3 years. The pipes were the kind of pipes that plumbers photograph for instructional purposes. The porch was held together by paint and the specific optimism of people who have decided not to look directly at something. My father explained all of this to me on a Sunday phone call in the tone he used for practical problems that required practical solutions from practical people. "We can't afford to fix it ourselves," he said. "How much?" I said. "The contractor says somewhere between 70 and 90,000, depending on what they find in the walls." I thought about my savings account, about 10 years of double shifts and dollar store shampoo, and the 2011 Subaru with 140,000 miles, about the number I had been building toward, the down payment on something that was mine. "Wade," my mother said. She had been on the call the whole time, I realized. "Waiting. This is your family's home. Your history is in these walls." I thought about my history in those walls. Then I thought about my mother, 3 years ago, at my grandmother's funeral, squeezing my hand and saying, "You've always been the one we could count on." "I'll do it," I said. My mother made a sound, the specific sound of relief passing through someone who has been holding it a long time. "My father will make it right. When we're gone, this house is yours. You earned it." "My mother, you earned it, baby. I promise. No paperwork, no deed, no attorney-reviewed documentation of any kind. Blood and a handshake. A mother's promise on the phone. The most expensive mistake of my life, and I didn't know it yet. I transferred $85,000 to Holloway Construction over the following 3 months. Tom Holloway, 22 years of residential renovation in our county, a man who documented everything compulsively because he had been burned by undocumented work early in his career and had decided that was never happening again. Every invoice, every progress photo, every email exchange. Tom kept records the way some people keep journals. This detail will matter. Keep it. I met Sarah 6 months after the renovation was finished. She came to fix a section of the soffit that Tom's crew had botched on the exterior. He had contracted it out to a subgroup he hadn't used before, and the work was wrong. And when I called to say so, he sent Sarah, who was his best independent contractor, and whose work, he said, he trusted more than his own. She came on a Saturday morning in October. over, and she climbed the ladder with the particular ease of someone who has been doing this her whole life, and she assessed the problem with the quiet efficiency of someone who doesn't need to announce what she's doing, because the work announces itself, and when she came down 2 hours later, she walked me through exactly what had been wrong and what she had done about it. Sharp eyes, steady hands, the kind of quiet that makes you want to fill it with your whole life story. I did not fill it immediately, but I asked if she wanted coffee, and she said yes, and we stood in the kitchen for 40 minutes, and I told her more than I had planned to. She came back the following Saturday, not for work, for coffee. That was the beginning. My parents disliked her from the first introduction. Not openly. My parents are not open people. They express things through register rather than statement, through the particular quality of their attention rather than words. My mother looked at Sarah's work truck when it pulled into the driveway and said, one syllable, perfectly calibrated to communicate assessment without being quotable. My father shook Sarah's hand and asked about her work with the tone of someone asking about a hobby. Belle was warmer. Belle is always warmer to your face. That night, through the wall between the guest room and the hallway, I heard her on the phone. He seems fine, but is that really the best one can do? I lay in the dark and held that sentence. Sarah was asleep in the guest room. No idea that the 3 people in this house had already decided she wasn't enough. Already decided she was a step down from something. Already decided in the specific way of people who have never had to earn anything they value, that the woman my brother chose to love was a judgment on the family. I didn't say anything. I lay in the dark and held the sentence and thought about 10 years of double shifts and dollar store shampoo and a house I had paid for with my body and my decade, and about the promise my parents had made, and about whether those 2 things, the promise and the is that really the best one can do, could both be true about the same people. They could. That's the thing. People are not simple. 3 months after Belle's phone call, my mother called me on a Tuesday morning with no greeting and no warmth. Your father and I have been talking. We think the house should go to Belle. When we're gone, she's struggling right now and you have Sarah, and Sarah has her business, and you 2 are going to be fine. I gripped the phone until the tendons in my hand were visible. Mom, I put in $85,000. That was a gift, Wade. A gift to your family. We're not going to let you throw it back in our faces like a transaction. A gift. My decade of savings, repackaged quietly, without my consent, into a gift. Because if it was a gift, there was no debt. If it was a gift, there was no promise to honor. If it was a gift, my mother could stand on the phone and use the word transaction like it was something shameful, and I would have to absorb it, and the house I had paid for would go to the daughter who had texted you guys figure it out while I signed the contractor check. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table. I did not cry. I thought about my mother's voice on the original call, the sound of relief moving through someone. You earned it, baby. I promise. I thought about Belle's phone call through the wall. I thought about Tom Holloway's documentation. Then Sarah came home. She found me at midnight at the kitchen table, my laptop open to the bank transfer records, the screen the only light in the room. She pulled a chair beside me without asking. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. All of it. Belle's is that really the best one can do. My mother's that was a gift. The decade of double shifts, the 85,000, the promise that had apparently been made with no intention of being kept. I told her in the specific flat way you tell things when you have been holding them alone and have finally found the person you trust with them. Sarah listened the way she listens, completely, without filling the space. Then she asked one question. Do you have the receipts? I did. Every email between me and Tom Holloway. Every invoice with the payment confirmation attached. Every wire transfer from my account to his, with the memo line, Mosley Family Home, full renovation. The bank statement showing $85,000 leaving my account in 3 installments over 12 weeks. Sarah looked at it all. Then she nodded slowly. Don't confront anyone, she said. Not yet. What I noticed over the following weeks, she spent an extra hour on her laptop every evening after dinner. A manila folder appeared on her desk. Brown, standard, nothing written on the cover. Phone calls taken outside, voice too low to carry through the glass. One night I came out of the shower and found her at the kitchen table. My bank statement spread in neat rows, highlighted, annotated in her careful, small handwriting. Sarah, I said, what are you building? She looked up. Insurance, she said. She held up a USB drive, small, black, the ordinary kind you buy in a 12-pack. Slideshow backup, she said, and slipped it into her shirt pocket. I looked at her for a moment. Then I went to bed, and I let her work. Belle came to my apartment on a Wednesday in April. Linen dress, wide smile. A single sheet of paper slid across my kitchen table with the ease of someone who has rehearsed the gesture. Acknowledgement of gift. 1 paragraph. It stated that my transfer of $85,000 to Holloway Construction for renovation of the Mosley family residence constituted a voluntary gift with no conditions, no claims, no expectation of recompense or ownership interest. My name was already printed on the signature line. Just a formality, Belle said. She tilted her head the way she does when she wants to seem accommodating. Mom wants peace of mind before the wedding. It's not a big deal. It just closes the loop. I read every word. Then I folded it. I'm not signing this, Belle. Her smile flickered. Half a second. Just enough to see the machinery under it, the calculation reassessing. And then the mask came back, smooth and immediate. We'll talk about it later, she said. She left the paper on the table on purpose. I know it was was on purpose because she made eye contact with it before she left, the way you make eye contact with something you are deliberately leaving behind. Sarah came home 20 minutes later. She photographed the document, every inch, front and back, including the pre-printed signature line with my name on it. Then she slid it into the manila folder without a word. "What's in that folder now?" I said. "Everything," she said. June 14th. String lights strung across the rafters of a rented barn. Wildflowers in mason jars at every table, because Sarah had wanted wildflowers and I had wanted whatever Sarah wanted. 150 people who loved us. Friends, colleagues, Sarah's family, my friends, neighbors, the kind of crowd that fills a space with the specific warmth of people who are genuinely glad to be there. I stood at the altar in the suit I had bought specifically for this. Marcus was beside me. He had been my best friend for 11 years and had listened to every version of the family situation with the patient loyalty of someone who has decided that being in your corner means being in your corner regardless of the complexity. Sarah walked down the aisle, white dress, grandmother's pearls, the quiet that makes you want to fill it with your whole life story. I blinked hard before she reached me. Then Marcus touched my arm. I know the rest of that part. I've told it. The ceremony was everything it was supposed to be. We said the vows we had written together, sitting at the kitchen table on a Sunday morning with coffee and a legal pad, which is the way most of the good things in our marriage have been built. Sarah went off script once. Just one line, added without warning, delivered looking directly into my eyes. "I will protect what's ours. Not mine, not yours. Ours." I understood what she meant. I understood it was not only for me. In the front row, Belle crossed her arms. My mother stared at the floor. The reception began the way receptions begin. Music, dancing, the organized joy of people who have been given permission to celebrate and are taking it seriously. The food was good. The bar was open. My friend couple from work had already claimed the corner nearest the speakers and were not leaving it. I danced with Sarah. We had 45 minutes, I think, maybe an hour, of something clean and uncomplicated. The thing the day was supposed to be. Then my mother stood up. She crossed the dance floor in 4 strides, with the focused intention of someone who has been building toward a moment and has decided the moment is now. She reached the DJ booth. She reached past him, past his surprised, instinctive lean back, and took the microphone out of his hand. The music cut. 150 people went quiet. "We are in mourning tonight." Her voice was controlled. She has always been good in front of a room. She worked in school administration for 22 years, and she knows how to project, how to pace, how to make a sentence land in a large space. "We are losing our son to a woman who has attached herself to our family for the purpose of inheriting our home." She pointed at Sarah, at my wife, at the woman who had spent the last 18 months building insurance for exactly this moment. This is not the family we raised. This is not the woman we would have chosen, and we will not pretend otherwise. My father stood beside her, silent, nodding with the slight, steady nod of a man who has been told what his role is and is performing it. The room was absolutely still. Then Belle rose from her chair. I watched her reach into her bag, watched her pull out the same single sheet of paper she had placed on my kitchen table in April, watched her walk, unhurried, heels clicking on the hardwood, to our table. She set the document in front of me. She placed a pen on top of it. She smiled the smile of someone who has arranged everything and is waiting to receive what she believes she has already won. "Just sign it, Wade." Her voice was soft. For the room, not for me, pitched exactly right for 150 people to hear. We all know it was never really yours. 150 pairs of eyes, the pen on the table, my hands flat on either side of it. I did not pick it up. I looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at me. One steady look. The look she gives me when she wants me to understand that she has this, that I don't need to do anything, that I have done my part and the next part is hers. She stood up. She buttoned her jacket. She walked to the DJ booth, not hurrying, not performing urgency, just moving with the specific calm of someone who has been waiting for this moment long enough that when it arrives, it feels ordinary. And she picked up her laptop, which had been sitting on the booth shelf since she had placed it there during setup that morning. She opened it. She took the USB drive from her jacket pocket. She plugged it in. The projection screen behind the booth went dark for 1 second. Then it lit up. My bank statement. Full page. The wire transfer line highlighted in yellow, visible from the back row. March 14th. Wire transfer to Holloway Construction, $28,000. April 3rd. Wire transfer to Holloway Construction, $28,000. May 22nd. Wire transfer to Holloway Construction, $29,000. And below, in the memo field of the third transfer, legible at 6 feet wide, Mosley Family Home, full renovation, final payment. Murmuring started. Phones came up, people leaning toward each other. Sarah pressed the remote. Tom Holloway's contractor documentation. 4 months of email chains, each one time-stamped, each one addressed to me. Invoices for the roof, the foundation, the pipes, the porch. Progress photos, dated and labeled. The final invoice at the top, in larger text than the rest. Total project cost, $85,247. Paid in full by Wade Mosley. Belle's smile was dimming the way a bulb dims on a dying circuit. Not all at once, but a visible, incremental reduction of wattage. Sarah pressed the remote again. Before and after photographs. Side by side, 6 feet wide, every pair labeled. Crumbling porch, rebuilt porch. porch, funded by Wade Mosley. Cracked foundation, sealed foundation, funded by Wade Mosley. Corroded pipes, replaced plumbing, funded by Wade Mosley. The room was leaning forward. Then Sarah pressed the remote one final time. The text messages filled the screen. Contact name at the top, Travis Keene. Belle's messages in blue, outgoing. Her words, her phone, her account. Mom and Dad are so gullible. I told them Sarah is only with Wade for the house. They bought it immediately. The sound that moved through the barn was not a gasp. It was lower, slower. The collective exhale of 150 people understanding something at the same time. Sarah clicked. Once I get that house, I'm listing it. Travis and I already checked. Easy $450,000 in this market. Someone at table 9 stood up for a better view of the screen. One more click. Wade's such an idiot for paying $85,000 into a house he'll never own. He deserves what he gets. Paula, who lives down the street from my parents and has known our family for 15 years, said, "Oh my God," loud enough to reach every corner of the barn. Sarah set the remote down. She turned to face my family, my mother, my father, my sister, with the expression of someone who has nothing left to prove and knows it. Her voice was calm, not raised, not performed. "That is the person who told you his wife married him for money." My mother turned to Belle. Belle opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The pen was still on the table in front of me. I had not touched it. Belle picked up her bag. She turned for the exit with the rigid speed of someone who has understood that the room is no longer available to her and is removing herself from it as fast as dignity permits, which was not very fast. Her heels on the hardwood, fast, uneven, catching slightly on a seam at the threshold. She did not fall. She kept walking. "Bobby!" My mother's voice was shaking for the first time. She turned to my father. "Say something." My father looked at the screen, at the text messages, at Belle's words in blue, still lit up 6 feet wide. He shook his head once. Then he took my mother's arm and steered her toward the door the way you steer someone who is about to do something they will regret, firmly, quietly, without letting them stop. My mother's hand was still around the microphone. When they reached the door, it dropped from her fingers. It hit the stage with a dull thud that carried through every speaker in the barn. Low, resonant, final. She didn't pick it up. 3 black silhouettes moved through the exit. An engine started in the parking lot. Headlights swept across the barn windows. Once, sweeping, and then disappeared. Gone. The screen was still lit. Belle's words, still visible. Sarah walked back to our table. She sat down beside me. She took my hand under the tablecloth, out of view, the private gesture of someone who is done performing and is now just here with her person. Then she turned to face the room. "Sorry about the delay," she said. "The bar's still open." The laugh started at table 6. It swept the barn. The rest of our wedding was ours. I want to say that clearly. The rest of it was entirely, completely ours. The dancing, the cake Sarah had ordered from a bakery, run by a woman who had been her friend since culinary school. The late-night moment on the barn steps when Marcus and I stood with cold beers and said almost nothing, the way you do with someone you've known for long enough that the silences are comfortable. At midnight, Sarah and I sat at our empty table, after most of the guests had gone, in the string lights and the wildflower aftermath of the day. She had her shoes off. She was looking at the empty dance floor. "How long were you planning that?" I said. She thought about it. "Since the night you told me everything. The midnight conversation. That was 18 months ago." "I know," she said. "You built all of that in 18 months. Not just the folder," she said. "I also talked to Tom Holloway. He was glad to contribute the documentation. He said," she paused, and something in her expression shifted into something quieter. "He said he liked you, that you were one of the good ones." I looked at her. "And the text messages?" I said. "Belle's texts to Travis?" Sarah looked at her hands. "Travis has a sister. She and Belle had a falling out last year. She reached out to me 4 months ago through a mutual contact. She thought I should know what Belle had been saying. You didn't tell me. I didn't want to put it on you before the wedding," she said. "You had enough to carry." I sat with that. My wife had been carrying a folder of evidence for a year and a half, quietly in her shirt pocket and her laptop bag and her evening hours, so that I wouldn't have to carry it, so that I could walk down an aisle and get married without the weight of what was coming in my hands. "Sarah," I said. "Yeah, I will protect what's ours," I said. "Not mine, not yours." She looked at me. "Ours," she said. My parents called 4 days after the wedding. My mother first. She did not start with an apology. She started with an explanation, which is what my mother does when she has decided that understanding her position is the precondition for moving forward. She explained about the stress, about Belle's situation, about how things had gotten complicated in ways that weren't anyone's fault exactly. I let her finish. Then I said, "Mom, Tom Holloway's documentation and my bank records establish a clear case for unjust enrichment. I've spoken to an attorney named David Park, 14 years in property and civil law, about what my options are." Silence. "I'm not deciding anything right now," I said, "but I want you to understand where things stand legally. I want you to have accurate information." More silence. "The house conversation needs to happen properly," I said, "with paperwork, with documentation, with the actual names on the deed." My mother said she understood. She said it in the voice of someone who has finally encountered a version of me she did not expect to be there. My father called the following day. He is not a man who apologizes, but he is a man who sometimes acknowledges. He acknowledged that Belle had behaved badly. He acknowledged that the promises made about the the house had been real promises. He did not acknowledge that he had stood beside my mother in a barn and nodded while she pointed at my wife. I filed that last part in the place where I keep things I'm not done with yet. The house conversation is ongoing. David Park is patient and thorough and has the particular quality of someone who knows how to hold a long game. Belle has not contacted me. Sarah and I live in our apartment, the apartment with the kitchen table where we had the midnight conversation, where the bank statements were spread in neat rows, where she told me don't confront anyone, not yet, and spent 18 months building the thing she had promised to build. She still has the manila folder. She keeps it in the filing cabinet in the second bedroom, the room that is currently her office and that we have discussed, in the quiet way of people who are thinking about what comes next, becoming something else eventually. I asked her once why she kept it. The case wasn't being actively litigated. The wedding was over. The folder had done its work. She thought about it. Same reason you keep receipts, she said. Not because you're going to use them, because the keeping was the point. I looked at her. You learned that from the folder, I said. I learned it from you, she said. From watching you keep every email from Tom Holloway for 3 years without knowing why. I thought about that. You build things before you know what they're for. You document before you understand the documentation. You keep the receipts because something in you understands that the day will come when the receipts are the only thing that tells the true story. Sarah understood that. That's why I married her.